In the world of boxing, there are punchers, there are artists, and then there's Naoya Inoue, a destructive fusion of both. With fists that move like precision blades and a ring IQ that borders on clairvoyance, Inoue doesn't just defeat his opponents, he dismantles them. He doesn't trade blows, he orchestrates controlled demolition. And perhaps nowhere is this clearer than in the unforgettable moments when he brutally crushed his opponents' bodies with the kind of clinical, ruthless mastery that defines legends. Let's enter the vortex of violence, a tapestry of 8. Chilling encounters where Inoue didn't just win fights. He turned the squared circle into an operating room and his fists into surgical instruments of pain. It all began with a name few remember, but a night no Inoue fan will ever forget. Croissant. Omayao stood across from Inoue on the night of his professional debut. Omayao wasn't expected to win, but no one anticipated the scalpel-sharp performance that Inoue delivered. From the opening seconds, Inoue operated with a poise rarely seen in rookies. He slipped punches like silk through fingers, each dodge drawing a clearer blueprint of his opponent's vulnerabilities. Then he began sketching pain onto that canvas, targeting the body with pinpoint precision. These weren't just body shots, they were surgical incisions. Omayao's resistance wasn't eroded, it was dismantled. When Inoue finally decided it was time to end it, he didn't wind up a flashy haymaker. No, he dipped and drove a thunderous left into Omayao's midsection. It wasn't just a knockout. It was an exclamation mark that folded Omayao like freshly laundered linens and introduced the world to the monster. Fast forward to his 8th professional fight, and Naoya Inoue was already being compared to champions of the past. But now he was facing one of them. Omar Andres Narvaez, a decorated veteran with a WBO junior bantamweight title to his name, stood in front of Inoue with the kind of experience and technique that had neutralized lesser men. But Inoue wasn't interested in going the distance. He had a different strategy, one that centered around brutalizing the body until resistance gave way to agony. From the first bell, Inoue controlled the geography of the ring. He moved like a general with complete command of the battlefield. Then came the digging shots, not to the head, but straight to Narvaez's midsection, each one looking like it could punch the hunger out of a man. The Argentine tried to respond but quickly found himself in an unfamiliar position, on the canvas, stunned by a violent overhand right that unplugged his footing like a glitch in a video game. Narvaez scrambled up, only for Inoue to paint the ring red with a barrage of combinations that seemed to fall from the ceiling like Tokyo rush hour traffic. By round 2, the punishment intensified, and Inoue uncoiled a 4-piece body combo so vicious it not only sealed the round, it closed the chapter. Narvaez had never been dominated like this before. The message was clear. Titles don't mean immunity, not when you're standing in front of a storm with gloves. By December 29, 2015, Inoue was no longer a rising star. He was a storm cloud with thunder in his fists. That night, Warito Penis found himself in the eye of that storm. Inoue entered the ring with the calmness of a man reading a book, but within seconds it became clear that he was reading Penis's every move, like a page he'd written himself. From the bell, Penis tried to press forward, but his punches fell into the air like leaves in the wind, touching nothing, moving nothing. Inoue, meanwhile, began measuring the distance with terrifying patience. Each jab, each step, and each angle was a calibration. Then, like a sniper who's locked in, he pulled the trigger, a body shot so clean and sharp it looked like the finishing blow of a horror movie. Penis didn't just fall. He folded inward, as though his entire system had been short-circuited. Desperation kicked in. Penis, to his credit, tried to mount a comeback, throwing wild shots in search of a miracle. But miracles don't exist when the monster's in control. Another hook to the ribs, another scream of breathlessness, and the fight was done. There was no dramatic crescendo, just the silence of inevitability and the sound of gloves hitting canvas. As Inoue continued his ascent, he ran into fighters who had reputations, who had survived wars, and who had tasted both glory and defeat. Antonio Nieves was one of them, tough, game, and experienced. But as the bell rang, Narve quickly learned that toughness was no shield against surgical malice. Inoue stalked him not with rage but with mathematical precision. His jab was a ruler, his movement a compass, and the target was always the midsection. Through rounds 1 to 4, Narve tried to set traps, tried to jab back, and tried to circle away. None of it mattered. Inoue's left hook began carving out space beneath Narve's ribs like a craftsman preparing a masterpiece of pain. By round 5, that same left hook detonated with finality, folding Narve like a steel chair at the end of a show. Though he managed to return to his feet, his legs carried the weight of a defeated man. Round 6 arrived not as a fresh start, but as a final chapter. After more punishment, Narve's corner, with mercy in their hearts and fear in their eyes, waved the white flag. This wasn't boxing. This was anatomy class with gloves. But even as Inoue collected scalps and gold, the world still hadn't seen the full depth of his brutality until December 30th, 2017, when he faced the towering Frenchman, Boyo. Boyo looked the part, tall, rangy, and confident, but he had walked into a buzzsaw. Inoue didn't just dominate him, he choreographed his collapse. From the opening bell, the monster walked him down like a predator who'd grown tired of playing. With his food, Boyo was dropped in the first round by a ferocious shot that made the crowd gasp and the canvas tremble. He rose, and for a moment, it looked like he might last longer. But Inoue was only warming up. In round 3, 38 seconds in, Inoue delivered a left hook to the rib so violent, so deep, it looked like Boyo's spine might need realignment. He crumbled, not just physically but spiritually. And yet the Frenchman tried to rise again. He did, twice more. Each time, Inoue punished him with the kind of cold, deliberate combinations that looked more like programming than fighting. When Boyo finally dropped to his knees for a third time, it wasn't because he was hurt. It was because he had been broken, and Inoue didn't even blink. By the time Inoue entered the World Boxing Super Series in 2019, he was no longer the hunter, he was the standard. And in the semifinals, he faced IBF champion Emmanuel Rodriguez. Rodriguez came in determined, composed and focused. In round 1, he looked every bit the part, landing crisp shots and moving fluidly, even managing to draw some blood from Inoue. It was the kind of round that gave his corner hope. But hope, when it faces inevitability, burns quickly. Round 2 opened like a thriller novel. Within seconds, Inoue detonated a left that dropped Rodriguez like a financial crash, sudden, jarring, and irreversible. As the referee administered the count, Rodriguez got up with courage and defiance, but Inoue was already reloading. Another shot, another collapse. And then a final combination, body and head, a symphony of destruction. And the referee stepped in. Not because Rodriguez had quit, but because the violence had become too complete. In just over a minute, Inoue had ended a champion's reign and redefined what it meant to dominate. But greatness isn't just measured by easy wins. Sometimes, it's the fires you survive that forge your legend. That's what made Inoue's fight with Nonito Dohaney so special. The Filipino Flash was no stepping stone. He was a multi-division champion with a left hook forged in hell and decades of ring wisdom. Their fight in the World Boxing Super Series final was expected to be a coronation. Instead, it became a war. In the second round, Dohaney landed a monster left that fractured Inoue's orbital bone. The monster bled. He staggered. But he didn't fold. Instead, he adjusted. From round 3 onward, Inoue responded with combinations that looked like artistry dipped in vengeance. Round 5 nearly decapitated Dohaney with a left hook followed by a jackhammer right. Yet the veteran fought back, trading fire, turning the ring into a battlefield. Then came round 11. With the fight hanging in the balance, Inoue uncorked a liver shot so brutal, it sent Dohaney to the mat with a look of pure anguish. Most would have stayed down, but Dohaney rose because warriors don't quit. Still, the damage was done. Inoue had not only survived the storm, he had created one, and when the final bell rang, it was the sound of history being written in sweat and blood. Finally, we come to the most recent masterpiece, a fight that may not have had the fanfare of previous wars, but possessed the same punishing poetry. On September 3, 2024, Tokyo's Ariake Arena became the stage for Naoya Inoue's return to defend his undisputed super bantamweight throne against Ireland's TJ Dohaney. Dohaney, a scrappy southpaw with grit in his veins and pride in his heart, came ready for war. But from the first bell, Inoue began chipping away, not with reckless aggression, but with the careful hands of a sculptor. Jabs were thrown like blueprints. Hooks to the body landed like buried explosives. By round 2, Dohaney's ribs were a target zone. By round 4, they were a demolition site. Dohaney fought bravely, firing back with counterpunches and even landing, a few that sparked cheers from the crowd. But the tide was never his. By round 6, Inoue had entered a higher gear, slipping punches with godlike reflexes, unleashing body combos that thudded like drums of war. Then came round 7. Dohaney's body, battered and bruised, betrayed him. As he pulled back, trying to retreat, the referee stepped in, recognizing what Dohaney's heart would not, that this was no longer a contest. It was a crucifixion. Across these 8 fights, one truth emerges. Naoya Inoue isn't just a boxer. He's a maestro of violence, a tactician of pain, a monster who writes symphonies with his fists, and the body is his favorite instrument. So now the question becomes, which one of these masterpieces crushed you the hardest?